This is how I got jacked in a little over a year. Hey, my name's Ben and I'm a 15-year-old kid. I've been super skinny my entire life. Like, my mum literally used to take me to the doctor all the time because she was worried that I was underweight. She was right, I was. I've always been pretty athletic. Like, I was into sport growing up, I did parkour, but I've always been like noticeably skinnier than most other kids. It never bothered me when I was a little kid because, you know, at that age, who cares, right? But you know, when I started high school, it quickly became one of my biggest insecurities. I got picked on a lot, and a serious lack of any size or muscle mass made it very difficult to kind of play sport or continue to improve my athletic abilities because, you know, playing AFL when you're 9 years old and being skinny is fine. But when you're 14 and like everybody else is like put on some size, you just get smashed, right? Like you don't stand a chance. So it quickly became a problem and something that I really wanted to fix. I don't really know what changed, but in about August of 2022, I bought some like 3 kilogram dumbbells and I made this little like workout routine in my backyard, which I used to do like after school. You know, it was like push-ups, sit-ups, like tricep dips. And yeah, with the dumbbells I did some bicep curls and like some lat raises and stuff. So very basic. I obviously didn't put on much muscle at all doing that, but it kind of got me into the world of fitness and like really sparked my love for working out. It's crazy to think that I actually used to struggle to like curl 3 kilograms, but when I was nearly 14, so a little over a year ago, I had a friend who got into the gym. He used to be like kind of like a pretty chubby guy. He was a little bit overweight, but he started training and he became an absolute monster. Like, this guy was like massive. Well, you know, for me at the time, he seemed like massive. He was like taking like protein powder and creatine and like going to the gym every day, and like he was super into it. And yeah, one day he invited us over, like me and one of my other friends. He took us to his gym outside of staff hours, right? So he snuck us in. Yeah, he was showing me all the different machines and stuff and how everything worked. And I remember we tested my max bench press. It was like 32 kilos or something like that. It was something terrible. It was kind of like being a little kid walking into a really big playground for the first time. It was just like, I loved it. I was instantly kind of hooked, right? I remember going home that day, and while I was in the car, like my mum was driving me home from my friend's house, I was asking her like, "Oh, Mum, can I start going to the gym? Like, there's a gym near us. Can I get a membership? Blah 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 blah." Like, and for the next couple of weeks, I was just nagging my parents, and they were like, "You know what? It's your birthday soon. When you turn 14, you'll be we'll let you start going to the gym." So about a month passed, and I was really getting into you know, doing my little workouts outside and stuff. And finally I turned 14 and I joined the gym for the first time. Yeah, that's where it all started, and you know, I'm really proud of how far I've come, and like I look back over a year later with a lot of pride. So, in this video, I want to tell you in detail how I got jacked as a teenager in a little over a year. So let's start with the fun part, training. For the first couple of months of training, I was on a push-pull leg split, 5 days a week. It was meant to be 6 days a week, but I always skipped one of the leg days. Yeah, that's how I started out. At the very start, I was super motivated and super excited. It was this new thing that I loved. So I basically had unlimited energy and motivation for it. Didn't ever really have to use any discipline or make myself go to the gym. It was something I loved doing. A couple months in, that starts to wear off, and I had to learn consistency and discipline. And those two things have been incredibly important in this whole journey, and really for all the other areas of my life. So, you know, I'm super thankful for the gym for teaching me those two skills, those two lessons. Here are a couple of things that I did well, and a couple of things that are really, really important for you if you want to start lifting weights and try and build muscle. The first thing, and it's a concept you really need to understand, is called progressive overload. So, increasing the intensity of your workout each week. So either adding reps or weight. For example, bench press. Week 1, you go in and you just bench the bar. Maybe you do that for 2 weeks, but then you add a little bit more weight next week, and then a little bit more weight next week, and then a little bit more weight to increase the intensity and the difficulty of your workouts progressively with how much strength you're gaining. So yeah, make sure you're not just doing the same weight week in, week out. Super, super important, because that's how building muscle works. That's like the cornerstone of putting on size and gaining strength. Another note on kind of like intensity, which relates to progressive overload, is training till failure, or at least getting close to failure. Super important. If you're not training to the point where you can't lift the weight anymore, you're not giving your muscles a reason to grow, and they're not going to. So make sure you're really pushing it hard. It does suck. It's like, it sucks, but it's weirdly fun, and it's kind of like you're challenging yourself to see, how much you can do. I find that's a lot easier. Like, training till failure is a lot easier when you have when you're training with some friends, or you've got like a gym partner, because then you kind of push each other. So that's another tip. I'd say train with a partner. Personally, it's very personal. Some people love it, some people hate it, but I love training with somebody. I find it really motivating, and yeah, I much prefer it. The next thing is mixing in compound lifts with isolation movements. So compound exercises are like bench press, deadlift, squats, things that use... So bench press, right, is like triceps, shoulders, chest, like back, little tiny bit of legs for like leg drive. Like, you're using a lot of different muscles compared to a bicep curl, which is literally just training this tiny area right here, right? So that's the difference between a compound movement and an isolation movement. Make sure you're doing both. So big, heavy compound movements will release more testosterone and more growth hormone, and that's also just how you build strength, and strength and size have heavily correlated, right? So the stronger you get, generally the bigger you get. But isolation movements are really important for growing like small muscles, like your triceps, biceps, lateral delts. Like, it's really important to have both. Although you need to be progressively overloading and training till failure, it's really important to stick with good form, and to have good form and control of the weight all the time. You never want to be ego lifting. You gotta avoid ego lifting, right? Like, in reality, you should be curling 6 kilos, but you try to do 8 because 8's a bigger number and you want to feel stronger. But when you're doing 8, your form breaks down and you're like swinging, and you're actually not getting nearly as much out of it. So please calm down and just avoid ego lifting. 1, you'll get injured doing more weight than you can handle, and 2, you're not going to make the same amount of progress, so there's no point. And nobody's going to judge you for starting out with light weights in the gym. What you get judged for is like looking like a dickhead trying to lift more than... Like, the only time you'll ever get judged in the gym is if you're ego lifting. People think it's going to make people judge them less. It makes people judge you 100% more. Just avoid it. Be safe, train with good form. It's way better. It's also really important to enjoy your workouts, to pick exercises. Say it's chest day, and everybody's like, do bench press, but you prefer the chest press machine. Like, you hate doing bench, but you love the chest press machine. Then do the chest press machine. Like, you've got to enjoy it. You're not going to be consistent if you hate every workout. Like, make it fun for you. And it doesn't mean like, oh, I hate training legs, so I'm never going to train legs. I made that mistake, and my legs are fucking tiny, nowhere near as big as they should be. So have discipline, still hit each muscle and train really hard, but it needs to be enjoyable. So, don't torture yourself for no reason. Torture yourself when it's necessary, but if you can make something fun, make it fun. And this is like a golden tip for training. Maximize your noob gains while you can. Your first 6 months to 2 years of training, and it varies from person to person, you will put on so much muscle so quickly, it's not even funny. Like, in your first 6 months of training, you can basically just stand in the gym and breathe gym air and you'll put on muscle. Like, so maximize that. Train hard your first 6 months, because that's the most progress like you'll ever make in your life. So, enjoy that and make the most of it. Do not waste your noob gains. I feel like I didn't, since my diet was so awful for really this whole year of training, this whole first year of training, I feel like I've left probably like 3-4 kilos of muscle on the table that I could have had on me, but I don't, because I wasted my noob gain, so please don't make that mistake. I was never really sure how much I should train each muscle group, but a golden rule is for the bigger muscle groups, for like back and chest, train them between 12 and 20 sets per week, whereas for the smaller muscles between like 6 and 12. So if you have like 4 or 5 chest and back exercises, so 5 exercises for chest, 5 exercises for back, then make sure you're doing 2 to 3 for like biceps, right? Like, because a lot of people will overtrain their smaller muscles but undertrain their big muscles. So just keep that in mind. Do a little bit of research. And that's actually my next point. Learning, right? When I first got into lifting, I got obsessed and I watched all the videos and read all the, like, not like the studies with all the research and shit. I don't know how to understand that, but like, I learnt a lot. I was really curious about how muscle growth worked and diet and protein and blah, blah, blah. And I think that has helped me make a lot of progress, because I feel like it's about 50-50. Some people, when they go to the gym, they just go in and they don't really know what they're doing, but they just take action, and that's great, right? But the people who get really into learning about it will make a lot more progress, as long as they don't get stuck procrastinating and going like, oh no, but I want to learn more before I start going to the gym. Go to the gym and learn at the same time, right? And progress will just go like that, I promise. Also, a quick disclaimer when it comes to learning. Majority of fitness influencers are dickheads, and not many of them know what they're talking about. There are some very good sources of information, but just use your brain. Like, come on. Most fitness influencers are just trying to sell you something, or just give like clickbait advice so that they get views, right? So just use your brain, get your information from reliable sources. It's not that hard. So as I mentioned before, I think my diet was probably my biggest constraint, like the thing that stopped me from making as much progress as I potentially could have. Yeah, I've always had a terrible appetite and like a really fast metabolism, which means staying in a calorie surplus is pretty difficult. I'm not one of the people that makes excuses, oh, I'm a hard gainer, oh, I got a fast metabolism. Shut the fuck up. If you eat enough and you train enough, you're gonna put on size. But it is a little bit harder for me and the majority of skinny guys to like eat more than we burn. So, and as I said, I wasn't that committed to improving my diet when I first started training. But it really does go to show that in your first year of training, you will make progress as long as you're training, and you're gonna make some progress anyway in your first year of training. Even if you do everything wrong, you're still gonna make progress. So my diet has improved a lot, and I'm pretty happy with it at the moment. I eat a lot of eggs, fruit, baked beans, like smoothies, pasta, rice, bread, as much meat as I can, decent amount of fruit, decent amount of vegetables. It's pretty good. Nuts is a big thing, a lot of protein for a very small thing, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with it at the moment. But this past year of training has not been great. Yeah, my main goals are to just eat enough protein, get enough calories in, and also just cut back on like sugar and junk food and shit for overall health purposes. Yeah, my diet's not perfect, but for the first time ever, I've been consistently putting on a little bit of weight each week, which is awesome to see, and that's really motivating. The best advice I can give you, significantly reduce processed junk food and sugar and shit, and then eat as much like healthy whole foods and like protein as you can. Please, for the love of God, avoid dirty bulking. It's a fucking awful idea. You'll feel like shit 24/7. Your health will just tank, right? You'll put on more fat than you put on muscle. You'll probably give yourself a fucking eating disorder, and it'll just destroy your mental health. It'll kill your testosterone levels and like your hormone health and just the rest of your health. Disrupt your sleep, which will impact your recovery. It's a fucking awful idea. Recovery, that's my next point. Okay, sorry, we're a bit all over the place. recovery is super important for muscle repair, hormone production like testosterone, HGH, all that. Yeah, proper recovery is essential to making progress in the gym, and sleep is the best way you can possibly recover. The one thing I've always done really well when it comes to training is sleep. Like, I've always been pretty good with my sleep schedule, but getting between 8 and 10 hours a night is super important. The obvious bad consequences of not getting enough sleep are like, you're not going to have the energy and you're going to feel tired, so you're not going to be able to work out as well as you should. Like, you're going to be tired in your workouts, and that's obviously just going to reduce the amount of progress you make. But sleep is when your muscles actually recover and grow back stronger and bigger. So, super important. All of your muscle building and just health sustaining hormones are produced while you sleep. So, testosterone, HGH, like all of that stuff gets released and produced overnight. So if your diet is perfect and your training is great, but you're not sleeping, you're an idiot. You are fucking yourself over for what? So you can scroll on Instagram? Like, come on. Block out 8 hours of your day to sleep. It's not that hard. In terms of how long you should wait between workouts, they reckon it takes about 36 hours for a muscle to recover. Have at least a day's gap in between training the same muscle again. I want to talk about consistency. Again, I've touched on this earlier, but look, I made a lot of mistakes and did a lot of things wrong. I changed up my workout routine way too often. I didn't eat right, my diet was terrible. What else? Yeah, I went through big patches of not training for weeks at a time. And yeah, weeks where I'd only do a couple of really half-assed workouts, and obviously it wasn't perfect at all. There was a lot of ups and downs, but I stuck with it. And I think that's what's really important, just having the mindset of, I'm never going to give up. I have it in my head that when I'm 70 years old, 80 years old, I still want to be in the gym, still want to be training. This is for life, right? So that makes it really easy to get through the patches where you're really struggling, because you realize that in the greatest scheme of my life, 2 weeks doesn't matter. Day to day, week to week, I wasn't that consistent. I haven't been that consistent, but I didn't give up ever. There was never a point where I was like, fuck it, I'm done with training. It's like, no, I've had a bad week, I've had a bad couple of weeks, but this is the journey I'm on, and I've committed myself to training and improving myself, right? So everyone's like, oh, you gotta be consistent. Yeah, but they're fucking lying to you if they're saying you need to go, you can never miss a workout or you'll lose all the progress. Obviously in an ideal world, you'd never miss a workout and you'd hit your calories and protein every day, obviously. But that's not realistic. And I'm not saying you can't get to that point. I'm not saying, 5 years from now, when I've been lifting for 6 years, that I won't be super dialed in and super consistent. But, we're human, so that doesn't mean you get to slack. I'm not giving you an excuse to not try to strive for consistency. But I'm just saying, don't murder yourself, don't beat yourself up, for missing a day. Because as long as you stick with it over time, you will make the progress. Yeah, strive for long-term consistency over short-term perfection. My consistency over this past year has been patchy. Some weeks I would miss every workout. And some weeks I would hit every single workout with 10 out of 10 intensity and eat exactly the right amount of calories every day. So, it'll work itself out. So, that's how I got jacked. Kind of. I'm obviously not massive or anything, but coming from the absolute stick insect of a child that I was, I think I've made a lot of progress and I'm super proud of myself. Yeah, that's how I got sort of jacked in a little over a year. And I'm really looking forward to the coming years of training, and obviously as I get older, I'm 15 now, but when I'm 16, 17, 18, you get a bit more testosterone, bones kind of solidify a bit. As I grow up, hopefully I'll be looking pretty damn good by the time I'm 20. But yeah, I've gone from being the awkward skinny kid to the confident guy with a pretty damn good physique for a 15-year-old. If you want to see more fitness and self-development content from me, subscribe, like the video, comment, whatever, do all the things. I'd really appreciate it. I'm trying to build a movement of teenagers who are all, doing productive shit and improving their lives, and I'd love you to be a part of it.